Welcome to the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to the Spreads Draft Recap. I'm your host, Jim Sella, here with Jay Dash. Dash, the Pittsburgh Steelers took exactly who I predicted in both of my mock drafts. Linebacker T.J. Watt from Wisconsin with their first-round pick. Everybody said it was going to be Jabril Peppers. They were dead wrong.
Yeah, but the Steelers have mentioned they do like this T.J. Watt, and it's what they wanted, so I'm happy with the pick. Now, I'm a little skeptical about the fans, though. The fans are setting themselves up for disappointment. They see T.J. Watt. They're thinking J.J. Watt. You can take a look at these guys and see they're not the same person, you know, so... And there's the other side of it, too. Everybody's staying away from the bandwagon. You either love it and think it's J.J. Watt, or you hate it because it's not J.J. Watt. I say just let it play out. It's who they wanted. I think it's a good pick. I think it's a good fit. He's not going to come in and start right away or anything, but I do like the pick. I'm not real high on it. I don't think he's going to turn into J.J. Watt, but I also don't hate it as well.
I'm very excited about the pick. At 6'4", 252 pounds, he is the prototypical size for a Steelers outside linebacker. He only played defense exclusively for 1 year, so he is a little bit of a project. So, you know, like you said, he's not up to JJ's standards quite yet. I think that
you actually believe he's going to turn into J.J. Watt, man?
Well, no, I'm not saying he's going to be a 2 or 3 time defensive player of the year, but he has pedigree to be the type of linebacker that the Steelers want and need. I mean, sometimes players are only, I don't want to say only good, but mostly good because of the system that they're in. So, along with Watt's potential, put that together with, you know, his potential leads into what the Steelers want him to do. He's just really in the best situation he could have been in. So I think he will be the most successful he could possibly be with this style of defense. That doesn't mean I think he's going to go out and be as good as his brother. They actually have another brother who plays for the Chargers. I believe he's a fullback. And 1 or 2 more brothers who are in college ball right now getting ready to make their jump into the pros. So this is a football family, so that pedigree is definitely there. I do agree. I don't think he'll start right away. I think they're going to flip-flop what they did last year. Last year, they let Jarvis Jones try to play the beginning of the year and earn his job, earn a new contract. They realized by the bye week he wasn't going to do it. So then they unleashed James Harrison on the NFL, and he tore people up. This year, if you go with Harrison at the beginning of the year, they have their bye week, I believe, in week 9. Then hopefully Watt will have learned enough that you can start working him into the starting lineup, or maybe just work him into the rotation more. So then that way his fresh legs will be taken over at the end of the year, and you can use Harrison in spot duty, which will make him even more effective.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. If James Harrison was playing like he did last year, it's going to be hard, even when T.J. Watt is ready to step in and play a role. It's going to be hard to take James Harrison off the field during passing situations, you know what I mean? So I don't know how much actual pass rush you're going to see out of T.J. Watt this year. Because, I mean, if James Harrison's playing like he was last year, you're going to want him in on those passing downs.
I did read, and this wasn't anything official. It might have just been a fan website, but I think it was a little better than just a fan site. But they said that if things work out, and, you know, that's an if, they might be able to use Harrison putting his hand on the ground and coming off the edge in very few plays. You know, mostly just super obvious passing downs, you know, 3rd and 20s, so that they could have Watt in at linebacker and Harrison out on the field still rushing the passer at the same time.
That'd be crazy. We'll see if that happens or not. But I just want to stress the fact, T.J. Watt, let him be his own man. Don't think he's J.J. Watt, and don't just stay away from the bandwagon, too, and just think because he's not J.J. Watt, he's a bust. He can be a good player, and he doesn't have to turn into his brother.
People on social media hated on the pick because it wasn't a safety. They're all stupid.
Well, I thought they might draft that Reuben Foster. He was still on the board, and seeing that they got rid of Lawrence Timmons, I thought he was a possibility, but I knew they wanted to stay away from anybody with character problems.
Yeah, they made a big deal when they came out of this draft to say, and look at us, we drafted people with good character. So I think that Foster was probably off the board for them pretty much from day one.
All right, move on to the second round.
Second round, we got Juju Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver out of USC at 6'2". He's like 215 pounds or something like that. He's a bigger guy. He caught 213 passes for a little over 3,000 yards, and I believe it was somewhere around 25 touchdowns in his 3 years with the Trojans. I was super surprised by a wide receiver with the second round pick, mostly because they've had so much success with later round wide receivers. So I did think that they were going to look for wide receiver in this draft, being as our depth was a little shaky towards the end of the season last year. But it did surprise me here at number 2. I really didn't hear much about this guy before the draft, so that is another reason why it surprised me. But apparently the Steelers aren't super enthused with Martavis Bryant. They're not completely sure that he's going to be able to keep his head straight. If they were, I don't think they take a guy here, a wide receiver at least here in the second round.
Well, Martavis Bryant came out and said that is Sammy Coates' replacement, not his.
Yeah, I wasn't as angry as other people were because you don't know the context in it. Like, you don't know if Sammy Coates and Bryant were joking or something before the draft. And I mean, it probably was just Bryant being a douche, but so many people think we should cut him because of that. Meanwhile, 2 weeks ago, they were ripping on Goodell because he wouldn't reinstate him. Social media is annoying as hell.
Yeah, I'm not cutting Bryant. If you remember, right when the offseason started, man, I said that there's a good chance they use a high pick on a wide receiver. And we talked about it for a while and said they do pick good wide receivers late in the draft and everything. And they have some pretty good depth at wide receiver too. But I mentioned that they feel they can get better at wide receiver. Just because you have depth doesn't mean you can't get better at wide receiver too. And they draft this Juju Smith-Schuster or Schuster-Smith. Which one is it?
I think it's Smith-Schuster.
Smith-Schuster. But yeah. I mean, this guy was being talked about as possibly a late first-round pick as well. So I think they got good value here. I'm not really surprised they took a wide receiver this high, man. I thought they could have even used a first-round pick. Now, I knew they weren't going to use the first-round pick on a wide receiver, but early in the offseason, the way they were talking, they really wanted to bring in another stud wide receiver. Now, I don't know what this means. I don't think it's Martavis Bryant's replacement. I would have, I would feel more like it is Sammy Coates' replacement. If it's either one of their replacement, it doesn't have to be either one at this point. But I'd like to see if he does become a factor, how they use all these wide receivers. If Martavis Bryant steps up and becomes the beast that he was before he got suspended, and you got Antonio Brown has to be on the field. If this guy steps up and turns into a top wide receiver, how are they going to use these guys? Is it finally time to put Antonio Brown in the slot? Because I don't think this guy's necessarily a slot receiver either.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Generally, rookie wide receivers don't make a huge impact. Outside of some of the greats. So I don't expect to see Juju start right away. So I don't think we're going to really see much of that problem this year. I think maybe next year that could be a problem.
I could see, I don't know,
second
round pick though, man.
Call it a problem.
A second round pick, I think by week 5, week 6, you should see that guy start to get some serious playing time. I mean, if he's
he'll
performing.
Play, but I don't think he's going to be starting. You're going to have Bryant and Brown starting most games, unless you're running 3 wide receiver package.
But that's what I'm talking about, the 3 wide receiver package. Are they going to do something different, or is it going to be Eli Rogers remain the 3rd wide receiver? Because, you draft a guy in the second round, you're thinking he's more than just a 3rd wide receiver.
I agree. And Rogers, although he did have a really good year, coming down the stretch last year outside of his injuries, he was undrafted, wasn't he? Or a late round pick. So,
I really like Eli, though. I mean, he's right now, if this Juju steps up and becomes a good wide receiver, Eli's still the number 4 and going to get good playing time,
Yeah, they could just use a rotation. Maybe they're going to try to line Juju in, not at tight end, but move him in towards the line of scrimmage a little bit more to try to get some mismatches on linebackers, considering they weren't able to add a tight end like some people thought they were going to.
All right, who was their first 3rd round pick?
Cameron Sutton, the cornerback out of Tennessee. He was teammates with their 4th round pick, Josh Dobbs. Sutton is a little smaller at like 5'11", a shade under 200 pounds. He had 7 interceptions in 4 years at Tennessee. He did miss the first half of his senior season in 2016 with an ankle injury. He's expected to be a pretty good guy. I've heard, I can't remember who they compared him to. He has better hands than Ike Taylor, I'll give you that, but he may not have the athleticism that Taylor had. So he definitely projects more, I think, as a nickelback, but the Steelers don't really have a nickelback, so that kind of fits in with exactly what they need because Willie Gay played okay, but he got worse as the year went on, and we don't really know what we're going to get out of Senquez Golson.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find an elite corner in the third round, so I wouldn't think anything more than nickelback at this point. But I really don't know too much about the guy at this point. But they did need a corner. They definitely needed. I mean, they drafted a second corner late in the draft.
Yeah, a big guy.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes sense. They need some help at corner. You also have Senquez Golson is still a huge question mark. We don't know if he's going to get any playing time this season or not. They got a lot of questions at corner outside of Artie Burns.
Sutton plays man coverage a lot better than some of the other corners in the draft, so I think that's part of the reason why the Steelers targeted him. Last year we talked about it after the AFC Championship game. They're not going to change the way they play or their defense drastically, but they are going to change how they play situational football, and the Steelers definitely recognize that they need to bring in some guys that could play man coverage in the event that they're going to go up against quarterbacks such as Tom Brady, who just eats that zone coverage alive.
And the other third round pick, James Conner.
All Steeler fans were cheering. Dash, me and you actually talked about this a little bit. We both said that he would be a good fit with that second pick in the third round. It was a compensatory pick. It was really close to the fourth round. So, I mean, if they would have waited till round 4, I think somebody would have taken Conner. Steelers really liked him. Obviously, this guy's come back from cancer, knee injuries. He's a great character guy. He's a great story. I think he might be from Pittsburgh. Is he from Pittsburgh also?
I'm not sure.
But either way, he's a bigger guy at 6'1", 233 pounds. He'll play well with Le'Veon Bell if Bell can stay healthy. He'll kind of be that power back, short yardage back. You might even see him in the red zone.
I'd love for him to turn into a touchdown vulture, man. I think he's a very good player. I love it. This made the draft to me, drafting James Conner, obviously.
56 touchdowns while he was in college, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was a beast, man. Now, I don't think he's going to be a complete beast in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a very valuable player, and he can catch the ball, too. He can work well in the passing game if Le'Veon goes down or if he needs a break or whatever. I like this guy. He can do it on the ground. He can do it in the air, and Easy actually believes he is going to be just as good as Ray Rice, man.
Yeah, maybe. He runs with a little more power than Ray Rice did. Not that Rice didn't have
they're
power.
They're different players, but he thinks the way Ray Rice stepped it up in the passing game, I mean, he was a huge threat in the passing game. He believes that Conner can turn into that type of player.
Let's get it. I'd like to see Le'Veon not have to carry the ball 400 freaking times this year.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's important because he does not get to play in the playoffs for us, and that's huge in beating the New England Patriots. If you want to beat the Patriots in the playoffs, you're going to need Le'Veon Bell, so you're going to have to scale his touches back during the regular season. I mean, we've seen it now, 3 straight years in a row. He didn't make it through the playoffs. Last year, he actually did play a playoff game finally, but it's obvious this guy gets too many touches, and I understand he's maybe the best offensive weapon in football, so you want to get him the ball as much as possible, but you see it hurts you in the end. So I think James Conner can step in, take some of those touches away, and help Le'Veon Bell stay healthy, so you do have a chance to beat New England in the playoffs.
I'm most excited about Conner in the red zone. I think he's going to give the Steelers the ability to run the ball short yardage and close to the goal line, something they've struggled with since pretty much Jerome Bettis' departure years and years ago. They run the ball well, they just don't run it that well in the red zone, and that is part of the reason why the Steelers struggle to score points in the red zone, because it's easier for defenses to defend all those wide receivers when you're in a more of a contained area.
Yeah, and I think that sums up the people that should definitely make this team. After that, I don't even know about this 4th-round quarterback, man. I did not like the pick at all.
Oh, he'll make the team. They already released Zach Mettenberger, and they'll want to carry 3 quarterbacks. They took Josh Dobbs.
They are going to carry 3 quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, they always carry 3. He'll just be the inactive 3rd quarterback.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So he'll be on the practice squad or whatever.
Well, I think he's technically still part of the actual roster because you don't have 53 active guys. You have like 51. They changed it like a few years ago,
I don't
so
remember.
that you used to have all three quarterbacks technically active on game day, but now they usually just carry two active and one. It's
Well,
really
maybe I
weird.
shouldn't have worded it like that. I think
Yeah,
all the players we mentioned are going to be good football players. Now, I think everything after this is a huge question mark, and I don't like the fourth round pick with this quarterback, and I don't think he's going to be successful, and I don't think he's Ben Roethlisberger's replacement. So I see no reason in drafting the guy at this point.
I don't think he's going to be Ben's replacement. I could see him possibly being the starter the very first year after Ben is done, the team not playing well, and then earning themselves a high pick to be able to go after another quarterback.
I hope they
Dobbs
don't wait that
is
long for their next quarterback, though. I don't want to see that. I'd rather just stay away from quarterback right now, and unless you really believe he is Ben's replacement, or just go after a top quarterback next year or the year after.
well, I think they're looking at him as a long-term backup, maybe, to kind of move on from Landry Jones after this season, after the 27 football season.
I get that, but you mentioned earlier this offseason, man, that this team, Ben's at the end of his career, they
I
need
agree.
pieces to bring in now to help them win now, and this just doesn't make any sense to me. Because,
I totally
Landry
agree.
Jones is going to be the backup,
Dobbs he's like an aerospace engineering major or something.
Yeah, he's a
I don't know.
rocket
This kid's
scientist.
an extremely smart guy. So I think that's he really impressed the Steelers that way. I don't want to hate on him because I didn't really watch, I don't watch a lot of college football. That's Easy's thing. But a little bit I did kind of look in on him after we took him. He's not going to be the next Dak Prescott, I'll tell you that. Not that I think Prescott's really going to be that great moving on through his career either. But I do, like
I
I
think
said, I think
Prescott's a
Dobbs is
beast.
kind of their long-term answer at backup and possibly a spot starter between Roethlisberger and the next franchise guy.
Yeah, like you said, he's a really smart guy. That's what worries me because he's so smart. I believe he can read the defense very well, but his accuracy, his
Oh, it's not
completion
good.
percentage was so low. That means his skills aren't that good. So I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
He's definitely a project, so fourth round pick is kind of a reach for me. Fifth round pick, they took defensive back Brian Allen out of Utah. This guy's a converted wide receiver. He's real big at 6'2 or 6'3, somewhere around 220 pounds. He's got good ball skills. He's probably a guy who'll get put on the practice squad. He'll get to learn a little bit this year. More of just a project player. And I know we need defensive backs, but I'm not liking the back end of the draft considering the Steelers have found contributors in these parts of the draft before, and I feel like they almost gave up trying to find contributors for this year and just only went on future picks here.
Yeah, and again, like I said, you mentioned earlier this offseason, Big Ben, at the end of his career, you want to bring in guys that, even if it's a small role, can help soon, and this doesn't seem like one of those guys.
He can play safety or nickelback, and they said that they might use him more at nickelback right away. But I don't think this guy is on the starting roster come week one.
No,
Probably
I
practice
wouldn't
squad.
believe so.
The round 6 pick, Colin Holba, I believe is how you say his last name. He's a long snapper from Louisville. This is the pick getting the most, I guess, scrutiny online and by some of the writers in Pittsburgh. People complaining that you don't draft a long snapper, blah, 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 blah. I mean, if the Steelers thought that this guy's going to come in and play for 15 years like Greg Warren has and possibly be that good, I really don't care that they used a 6th-round pick on him. But it was a little surprising that they took a long snapper here when, again, like we just said, they found contributors here in round 6 before. And they re-signed Warren in the offseason, so I doubt that this guy beats him out for the job this year. So it's either practice squad or cut. So it's like the waste
I
of
would think either practice squad or he beats out Greg Warren and they get rid of him, to tell you the truth, because you're not going to have 2 long snappers on your team for sure. And using a 6th-round pick on a long snapper, I mean, it is a little bit crazy. So I think they think that's his replacement, and you really can't just keep both of them on the team. So I don't know, man. I don't know if Greg Warren's going to stay on his team or not.
We'll see. Maybe Holba, he'll project as another spot along the offensive line, so that'll give the Steelers a reason to want to store him on the practice squad for 1 year.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Their last pick, round 7, Keon Adams, a linebacker out of Western Michigan. Not really a lot about this guy. Again, he's a project player. He's somewhere along the lines of a Vince Williams or a Sean Spence. Somebody maybe not even as highly rated as those guys because they were drafted a little earlier than round 7. He's might catch on special teams right away, but again, this is another guy I just see on the practice squad. So I don't know. I just felt like they could have got a little bit better value out of the back end of the draft this year. But I'm not a scout, so what do I know?
Yeah, in 7th round, I really never feel like it matters.
Yeah, you're not going to get a Brett Kiesel every year.
Yeah. I mean, you get lucky if your 7th round pick even lasts a year on your team.
And I know we're criticizing some of these late round picks. I'm not sitting here saying like some of these other idiot yinzers, well, you found Tom Brady and Antonio Brown. And okay, for every one of those guys, there's 500 jamokes that get picked in these rounds that don't make it. So it happens to a lot of teams. It's not like the Steelers are the only one who have some questionable late round picks. Sometimes 6th or 7th round picks don't even make the team, not even the practice squad. So I'm not trying to yins on everybody. I just feel like they really needed so much defensive help. I was just surprised they didn't go after more defense in the back half.
Yeah, considering they used, 2 of their first 4 picks on offense.
Yeah, and I thought it would be 3 defense and 1 offense out of those first 4.
I mean, it didn't surprise me necessarily too much. I don't know. I wish that it got a tight end, maybe.
Yeah, not too bad. I just read today that Ladarius Green's back on the field and moving around during OTAs or whatever the hell it's called this early in the offseason.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Please believe. Steeler draft, what are you going to grade him?
It's hard to give him a grade.
Minus.
I mean, if I'd have graded last year's draft right after the draft, it would have been worse than the actual final grade after seeing him throughout the season. So it's hard to give him a grade before you see the players because there's so many flops in the draft and there's so many people that look like they're going to be nothing that turn out to be very, very good football players. But considering they got James Conner, A+.
A+. Hey, man, if their first 4 picks, the first, second, and 2 in the 3rd round, can contribute even half as much as last year's first 3 picks, you add that with a healthy Cam Hayward on the defensive side of the ball, a returning Martavis Bryant. I mean, this team has definitely gotten better. Can they compete with the Patriots?
Got to keep Le'Veon healthy.
Believe it. Fans, questions or comments, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. You'll find this episode on our Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Let us know what you think of the Steelers draft in the comments section below. Hit us up on YouTube. Click subscribe. Pittsburgh Steelers football's coming back pretty soon. Only a few more months.